Welcome back, everyone, to another edition of Legal Legends Podcast. I have today with me a legal legend who is crushing the game. His story is awesome. He is getting big wins for his clients. I've known him for a number of years, and I gotta say everything about him. He's just an awesome dude, and he's just not an attorney. There's so many more things to him. He has the slick back Pat Riley hairstyle. He has that old school Donnie Brasco whip. I bring on Ryan Wechsler, partner at Longine and Wechsler. Thank you for joining me, my friend. How is everything going?
It's great because you just compared me to Pat Riley. He's like a total model for me in style. So thank you.
I didn't even mention. I mean, this man does have style, man. There. I don't think that Ryan goes to Walgreens without the drip.
Well, I've got I either have the suit or I got the track suit. One of the two. Very different.
Let's jump into, you mentioned Pat Riley because, and we'll jump around, but
Yeah.
you mentioned Pat Riley. You're a huge basketball guy. I mean, you referee games, college games. People may not know, but in between his part-time job as an attorney, he's a referee doing
Yeah.
collegiate basketball games. How did you get into that?
My dad's like a basketball junkie, as you would call it. And so, they pass that illness on to you. I know you're a basketball junkie too. So I was just brought up where really there was no religion in my house, but basketball was kind of a religion. I was a decent player. And I played against a lot of good players. I was a decent player at best. But the officiating is something I got into because I needed to like make money in high school. So I started doing like kiddie games and stuff like that. And, eventually when I got out of law school, like I picked it back up, but then I wanted to pursue it. It was like a weird time to want to pursue it because I was at the same time that I started pursuing my legal career, I started pursuing like, you know what? I actually want to like pursue refereeing. And then, since then I've worked myself up into, the NCAA.
Talk about that. I mean, that's pretty awesome. I mean, that's a select few. Select few. You don't covered high school basketball for a very long time, and I mean, most guys don't get past that level. I mean, how did that work itself out for you?
I was a better referee for sure, and I am a better referee for sure than I ever was a player. I think I have certain attributes that make me good at it, and it's interesting because there's like a lot of overlap in what I do as a litigator and as an attorney, and what I do as a referee. So I was kind of learning like two different things that have a lot of overlap at the same time. Like I'll give you an example. Dealing with a judge, and having to think on your feet is very similar to dealing with a very type A, intense college basketball coach. So learning how to deal with a judge made me better with dealing with coaches. And then dealing with coaches made me better at dealing with really type A judges. So, that kind of stuff, the high pressure, performative part of it is, also a major overlap. So I think that I have some qualities about me that made me good at that. And I think I was kind of exercising those muscles in two different crafts at once. And I think that helped me accelerate.
See, folks, look at how he turned refereeing into talking about legal. I mean, that's just badass. I gotta say, is there a coach you've ever had to throw out of a game in college?
Yeah, it happens. It happens, but less in college. I think firstly, in college, it's a coach's league. So we're more careful about, hitting a coach or dumping a coach. Certainly, listen, if they put me in that position, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to be afraid to do it, but it's a coach's league. The coaches at the college level are usually more high level and they're able to have high level conversations, and you've got to be able to have high level conversations with them. And you also have to understand and have empathy that they're fighting for their team and their job is on the line. So they're going to be wound up. They're going to be intense. They're going to be yelling. You just have to learn not to take those things personally and just know that it's innate in their personality. Now, if they're coming at you wild and crazy and disrespecting you, different story. You got to handle business. But to answer your question more succinctly, you see that more at the lower levels, like high school. I've dumped a million coaches because a lot of times they just act a fool. Not
Yeah.
all of them. There's some great high school coaches, but there's also plenty that they just don't have that maturity yet. College, they have that maturity, and sometimes they know how to walk right up to the line
Hmm.
before they can get a technical foul, and they know where to stop. And that's the difference between a high school coach and a college coach.
That's a skill.
It
That's a
is. It's
skill
a
for
major
sure.
skill. It takes maturity too. It takes basketball IQ.
Yeah.
It takes understanding what the referee has to do and not pushing the referee overboard to get hit. And sometimes they want a technical foul. So sometimes a coach will be like, listen, I need a technical foul for my team. I'll be like, look, you got to give me a reason. So he'll act a fool and then bam, I hit him.
I got to ask you. I mean, I don't want to make this a whole basketball conversation because I know we could. Because I mean, I know we're big into basketball, and now we got March Madness coming up. The tournaments are, women's tournaments are going on right now. Are you refereeing any games?
I just wrapped up my college season, so I'm done.
Okay.
I did a JUCO final. That was my last game of the year. My Division
Hmm.
One schedule's over,
Hmm.
but I'll be watching for sure. I love March Madness.
Yeah. So we have that coming up right now, and I mean, look at just as a basketball guy, have you seen what the hell Rick Pitino has done at St. John's?
Yeah,
I mean, what is this? I
I've
mean, and
refereed him before. Actually, I refereed
you
him
have.
in a men's tournament. Yeah, but Rick Pitino's an amazing human being and an amazing coach. I wish I refereed him. I wish I was in his league refereeing him as a coach.
Mhm.
But I've seen a lot of his interviews and stuff, and I know they're very frustrated with the whole NIL and transfer portal stuff, and it's making their job a little more difficult. But yeah, he's doing amazing things.
I mean, think about the fact that he took over this dumpster at St. John's, and they're the number one team in their conference. And there was a speech he did earlier this year. I don't know if you had a chance to see it, if it popped up on any of your social media feeds, where he kind of reminded these guys today. I mean, are y'all like today's? Are y'all soft?
Yeah, I
That was
saw.
an awesome speech to me, and I wonder how many guys ran home to tell their moms.
It's special to see, him in action and to see him reemerge because, he was down and out with the stuff that happened at Louisville. And
Yeah,
now he came back and he was doing some great things at Iona, and now
yeah.
he's where he's at. And you can't deny the talent that Rick Pitino has. He continues to be successful over and over and over again.
And he's in his mid-70s, right?
Guy's unbelievable.
I mean, he's 72 years, well, early 70s, 72 years old, and he's just turned his program around in 2 years. I'm just,
Another coach with max swag too.
yes,
He's
absolutely.
swag. He was always swagging in the '90s, man. Him and Pat Riley are like the guys to emulate.
So let's talk about your legal career and what brought you here. I mean, you're from South Florida. I know you and Lyle Long, your partner, knew each other in high school. What was your road like through high school? Because I mean, I know you had situations in your life and you had to make decisions at certain points. You care to share some of these things that happened with your life as a youngster?
Yeah, I'm an open book. I mean, I hung with a tough crowd,
Hmm.
and I was a self-proclaimed tough guy, and I got myself in plenty of nonsense, in high school, and I was actually a juvenile delinquent. I had felonies I was locked up as a juvenile. I didn't get into college. I was, and it's weird because I was still somewhat studious, not like I ended up being in college and law school ultimately, but in high school, I was still somewhat studious. I got pretty good grades, good enough.
Hmm.
But I had this, other part of my life where I was just, a wild maniac, and I hung out with a lot of people that were wild, and it kept me out of college. I had a bad criminal record as a juvenile. Thank God that's not on my record anymore. But I'm sure if you dig in the archives in Broward, you'll see some ugly stuff. And it was always like it wasn't. I was never a thief. I was never dishonest. It was never stuff like that. But not that my other crimes were better, but I was a fighter. I got in a lot of fist fights. I lost
Really?
plenty. I won plenty, but that was really the nature. That was my bug. I was always getting into combat with other people like a total idiot, and that's where I found myself in a lot of trouble.
Do you like combat sports? Boxing,
Yeah, I like
MMA?
to
I
wa-
mean,
yeah, I do. And I like to watch them, but I never partook in that. Instead, I just did it in the street. you know, and I got some scars to prove it. Like this is a scar. I got my head kicked in.
Oh
You know,
my
I got
God.
like battle scars all over. One of my teeth got knocked out. And I got,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. So,
That's wild. I mean, heck, they should have honed that in and got you into an MMA gym or something like that at the time.
you know, I had some buddies that like were hanging out, like, and I'm still close with to this day that were actually on that route. But they
Mhm.
couldn't stop doing it in the street, and it kept them, you know, probably from having careers. I had a friend that was headed to be a state champion wrestler that I was hanging out with a lot at that time. And then, you know, he ended up going to prison because of the nonsense he was doing outside of school. And,
Wow.
you know, so yeah, yeah. So
So,
I've seen a few things for sure.
so how did you make the shift? I mean, you said you didn't get into college, but I know obviously you had to go to college at some point to become an attorney. You went to Florida State in '06, and you got
Yep.
your law degree, and you graduated from law school in 14. When did it? What happened?
Not getting into college was like a real scare for me, like a real wake up call. Cause I kind of thought that, you know what, no matter what, I'm bright enough and good enough and great enough, you know, to make it. And despite all this idiotic stuff that I'm doing, and then reality, you know, knocked at my door and was like, listen, pal, you're not even getting into college, you know? So I started at junior college. And at that point, it scared the shit out of me. So I always wanted to be successful. I always wanted to not have money be a struggle. You know, because I know it doesn't buy happiness, but it makes life easier. And I was always very financially motivated. So not getting into college was really my wake up call. And I really changed. I'd like to say I changed all that kind of behavior overnight. Like I definitely dimmed it down. I was no saint in college either, but I really got academically focused, and um, hit the books really hard. And I did my best to stay away from trouble,
Mhm.
because I knew that if I stayed on that path, I was going to end up in the can, or, you know, not fulfilling goals that were important to me, which is, again, I wanted to find myself in a career and make money.
So you didn't get into college initially because of your criminal record, or because your grades were okay, and they would respond saying you didn't get in, and just because of your
But
activity that you were involved in?
yeah, they didn't tell me that, but I know that I applied to enough schools that were clearly within target based on my grades and didn't get in.
Mhm.
And it had to have been my criminal record. In fact, a few schools did tell me that. And
Oh wow.
they interviewed me after the fact, but the problem is I had violent felonies as a juvenile, and they were ugly. You know, they
Yeah.
were ugly, violent felonies. And um, the colleges, I wasn't exceptional enough for them to overlook that.
Mhm. So where'd you go to junior college before going to Florida State?
It's now Palm Beach State, but back then it was
Okay.
Palm Beach Community College. I did 2 years there. Then I transferred to Florida State,
Okay.
finished to get my bachelor's there, went home for a year, and then I went back to Florida State for law school.
What was that experience like, life in Tallahassee? I mean, obviously it's a completely different atmosphere, and I mean, like I went to Florida State for a year and a half. I mean, it's totally different than South Florida.
Crazy. Like my undergrad years there, you know, was obviously looked a little different than my law school years there. I was
Mhm.
much more mature as a law student, and I had a totally different focus as a law student. But um, undergrad was wild. I was still a pretty wild guy, but I was still very, very academically focused.
Mhm.
Um, so that was a really fun experience. And then law school was a different experience because I went back to Tallahassee more as an adult, you know,
Yeah.
a young adult, and the people I was around were other law students. And Florida State is a really good law school. It's not,
Mhm.
it
Yeah.
doesn't have people that aren't very academically focused. So I was around very, very bright people, and I got in a lot less trouble in law school than I did in undergrad. Let's put it that way.
Did Was some of the stuff that when you were younger, what did it? Because I know you're into mafia movies. Like I love mafia movies. I love The Godfather, Donnie Brasco. I know you have that. You still have that car?
Yeah, I got the '87 Lincoln. Yeah, I
Yeah.
got the '87 Lincoln, and I got the '87 Buick Grand National.
Where he's looking for, where obviously Jesus, what the hell? Why did my brain why did my brain Why did my brain just go? I have a fart in my brain. The hell's
I
his
don't know.
name
I
again?
can't really answer that. That's one I can't answer.
I don't understand how in the world I can't remember the man's name. Al Pacino.
Oh yeah,
The
Pacino.
one
I love it.
where the one where he's looking for a screwdriver in the radio.
Oh yeah, it's Donnie Brasco.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
plays Lefty
lefty,
Guns.
lefty.
Yeah.
So that's the one you have where he lost a screwdriver in the radio.
He's driving he's driving a Cadillac in that one. He's driving an old Cadillac DeVille. That's probably like a 76. I got an 87 Lincoln Town Car. My town car is like the same town car that Paul Castellano got whacked in front of Sparks Steakhouse.
So did that have an influence when you were younger? Because you watch, I mean, when you watch these movies, I mean, it's glorified so much, but and I love them too. I can't lie, but
Loved it.
does that have anything to do with growing up? Like, did you watch that type of thing and then say, yeah, I like that?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, yeah, I resonated. Those characters resonated with me.
Yeah,
Just my mentality and stuff, and my dad's from the Bronx. He's from a Italian, Irish, Jewish neighborhood, Pelham Parkway in the Bronx. So, I had spent a lot of time, going back and forth every summer in New York. So I kind of gravitated towards that culture. But like anybody, I love crime movies in general, and of course, I love the mafia. Is just the most interesting subculture in American history in terms of crime, in my opinion. So yeah, I definitely gravitated towards that. And I grew up with a lot of Italian guys, so we all were like that. It wasn't just me. Like my whole crew, to some extent, was like that. We grew up
yeah.
on The Sopranos. Those characters resonated with us. We were wild, treacherous maniacs. So yes, there's an influence, and like that stuff's still on my wall. It's still part of me. I've got like De Niro and Pesci on my wall. I've got a signed Pesci thing. I like if you've been in my office, I've got all
I
this
know.
signed
Yeah,
memorabilia.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that stuff. I
No, I
love it.
love it too. It's. I mean, I'm looking at my Goodfellas poster right here. I got my Scarface above, Scarface there,
Classic.
Scarface there.
I've got
I mean,
Scarface up here. I got Frank
yeah,
Leggia and Pacino signed.
yeah.
I've got a 27 by 40 Scarface theatrical poster signed by Pacino. I got a bunch of cool stuff.
I mean,
Yeah, I love it. I love
I,
that stuff.
I think I've watched every single. I think I've and actually I remember I asked you if you were from New York, and you said you weren't, but you darn near lived in New York since your father's from the Bronx. And that explains a lot more now.
Well, my
Yeah,
grandparents were in the Bronx,
yeah.
so I'd go see them every summer.
Okay.
I'm a Fugazi though. I'm a Floridian, but this is the sixth borough. All my friends. The weird part was like all my friends growing up, all their parents were also from New York, or they were
Yeah.
from New York and moved down very young. So it was weird like that. At least where I was in Broward
No,
County, it was like a pocket of like New York Northeast bloodline.
no, it is. My mother is from New York City, and her
Right,
family, my mom's side of the family is Italian, so I am
right.
part Italian myself. And I mean, with my family lived in Westchester County, and right outside the Bronx, obviously. And
Yeah. I
I think
got
it's called.
family in
I think
Westchester.
it's called. I think the one some of them Pelham Manor, or is that what it's called?
Bay.
I know it's somewhere up there in Westchester. I mean, I went there as a kid. It was. I mean, I'm 47 now. I remember
Damn, you're
taking my
47, brother?
47, man.
Dude, you're the youngest 47 ever. Good for you. My
Yeah.
compliments.
Thank you. I
You got me
appreciate
by
it.
10 years.
I'm trying to. I got to keep the. I mean, since there's no hair here, usually I have it shaved completely, but I try to keep the beard as perfectly colored as possible. I
You're
mean, I get a.
always swagging it, bro.
I try, man. I try to be like you, man. It's
Yeah, right.
I need to. I get the special shoes and stuff like that, so people
You do.
remember me. I
You
get the
do.
wild stuff. But no, it's because I love I love watching mafia stuff, and maybe in a different life I was a member of the mafia. I don't know.
That's what I say. I
Because
think I got whacked in a Buick in like 82, and then I reemerged into Ryan Wechsler, a Jewish kid from South Florida. And that's what explains it. Because I really don't have, beyond what I've already told you, I don't have a
yeah,
very good, convincing explanation.
because I mean I've watched. I think I probably watched every documentary you can possibly watch on Amazon, Netflix,
Yeah.
YouTube, and
Yeah.
and I mean and they all say the same thing, but there's a different perspective. I mean, I'm sure you've watched that Francesi guy a million times.
Yeah.
I've watched his stuff, and I just when I'm sitting there watching it, I'm thinking like, I would have a hard time. The one thing I guess the thing that I would wrap myself around is how do these guys go to sleep at night and
Yeah,
not worry about having the FBI busting down your door
exactly.
every day
Well,
to take you, just
I think in the old days, they in the glory days, they had less of a fear about that because they didn't get crazy time. But then
yeah,
the, the federal government, when the federal
Rico.
government started cracking down, they started giving them, football numbers. And then I think that just killed that whole thing. And it's for the better, obviously.
Obviously.
I love the subculture and the history of it, but I'm a lawyer. I'm not a criminal. But I had friends whose dads were in that life, and
Really?
so oh
Okay.
yeah, oh yeah, for
Because I mean,
sure.
you look at the house that the guy had with Paul, the one that got whacked on in front of Sparks. He had that big house in Staten Island. You're like,
Yeah,
that's a
very yeah.
compound. That's a compound. You know what I
Yeah, that's
mean?
why he got killed because he was really greedy with the money. It was John
Yeah.
Gotti's people took him out. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I mean, obviously, then John Gotti and all that stuff. I
You gotta
mean,
share the money, bro. You gotta be like a
yeah.
plaintiff lawyer. You gotta share.
Yeah, you can't be keeping it all to yourself. And when all of y'all are doing dirt, it's not a good idea. Someone's always coming for your head.
Especially in that life.
Wow, it's wild. It's wild. So I mean, you've been a lawyer now for 10 years.
Yep.
Your road is taking you. I mean, I see, from Greenspoon Martyr, you did insurance defense work at Cole Scott Cassane, Berman and Berman, and you've been, with Lyle Long and Alex Jean for 5+ years now.
Yeah.
What's that been like? That road from insurance defense to the plaintiff side, and
hmm
talk about that. I mean, and what drew you from insurance defense over to the plaintiff side?
Yeah. I got my first job where I got my first job, so
Yeah.
and it ended up being Cole Scott that gave me a gig, and I'm very thankful for that. They're a great defense firm. But I knew right away I didn't want to be a defense lawyer. Just it wasn't for me. I had empathy and compassion for the plaintiffs. I'd be taking their depositions and I'd be like, yo, insurance company needs to just pay this person. This is like ridiculous. And that's why I knew I wasn't on the right side of the fence. For me, I wasn't on the right side of the fence. And I knew I wanted to be a plaintiff lawyer. And then once I left Cole Scott, which it really only took me like a year and a half, and I parted ways with Cole Scott, and I never looked back.
You were at Berman's office for 3 years, and then
Right.
How did you end up over with Lyle and Alex?
I think it was just an inevitable growth. I did a lot of good things with Berman, and I had great experience with them. In terms of my litigation experience, but I wanted to establish my own castle. There were things that I wanted to be able to do with my brand that were different than my prior firm. They're bigger, they're more of a mill. I'm a practitioner. I don't rely on staff. I'm a practitioner by nature. I'm a litigator. I take cases to trial, and I wanted to go out on my own and establish a firm of that kind of caliber and with that label of being, high performance, high level attorneys. And, that's what I've been able to do, fortunately, with Alex and Lyle.
Talk about. I mean, what do you? Obviously, you mentioned you're a litigator. I mean, does going to trial get your juices flowing? The competition, you are into sports, so obviously, is that something that really drives you and something you enjoy a great deal?
Yeah, it's a ton of preparation. So that part of it is really hard, but the excitement of being in the courtroom I think that's what most people go to law school for. I just think that many don't end up doing it for whatever reason, either because they're afraid, or they just don't have the right mentors, or frankly, they just don't have the work ethic, because you can't just waltz into a courtroom and into a trial and wing it. It takes years of preparation in that case, and teeing it up the right way, and knowing the case through and through, and preparing your witnesses and that stuff. It just takes a lot of work. It does. It gets my juice flowing. It's where I get to be performative. The only thing I can really compare it to is and it's a little different, but when I'm out there refereeing a big game, I'm not the center of attention, and I don't want to be the center of attention when I'm refereeing. In fact, that's something we try to avoid, but it is performative. It is high pressure, and that's how it is in trial. It's very high pressure. You have things coming at you very fast. You have to make decisions on the go, just like in basketball. You know, a guy goes to the rim, a help defender comes over, he jumps. I've got to make a decision. Is he legal? Is he illegal? Did this affect the shot? Is it a play I should put a whistle on? Same thing with somebody testifying. Do I need to object right now? What should I say? You know, so that kind of high pressure environment I thrive in. And I think I also thrive in the performative part of it as well.
You ever find yourself I mean, you probably have, but I'm gonna ask anyway. Have you ever found yourself in trial and you went and obviously you prepare your witness, you prepare the plaintiff because they have to testify, I presume,
Of course.
typically. And you ever prepared them and then they get up there and you ask them the question and they completely screw it up and ruin the case?
I've never had it go belly up, but I probably had that happen in deposition, you know, maybe once or twice in my whole career, not in trial. I think I'm smart enough not to take a case to trial where my client is going to throw up all over themselves. Because if I really think there's a strong chance of that happening, I'm going to probably encourage them to settle the case. And I'm very honest with my clients. You know, I think that's one thing people like about me is I wear my heart on my sleeve and I'm brutally honest. I'll tell them, look, you're just not going to make a good plaintiff. But I think I've had one or two instances in my career in deposition where my client is saying something and I'm like, oh my Lord, we covered this. Like, what are you saying? You know, I'm like, take a break. Oh my God. Lyle laughs. Like he'll tell you one time I had a client in his office and I probably shouldn't share this, but I don't care. I just say whatever I got to say and I tell the truth. I had a client, he had me so hot and I knew him instantly enough. I put him against the wall. I was like, what are you doing? And Lyle walks out and he's like, yo, you've got the client against the wall. And I'm like, well, bro, like, he's not listening to me, you know? And the client was like, it looked like I was shaking him down. Meanwhile, I'm just like, brother, I've prepared you for this and you're just not doing anything that I told you to do. You're doing the exact opposite of what I told you to do. So that's not an approved practice at this law firm. It's not an approved practice by the Florida bar. But you know, I did have that happen once and I do have a little bit of a trigger temper. So
I remember I worked in my dad's office. My dad was an attorney for 40 years and he was,
I didn't know that.
yeah, he was before he became a judge. He was a judge for 6 before, right before he passed away. And he was an attorney for over 40 years. And I remember being in his office when I worked in his office and he got into an argument with his client. And I don't remember if it was during a deposition, they were going to have a deposition or something. And they got into a massive argument. Client flips over the chair. My dad throws some stuff at him, and the client walks out, and then the client walks back in.
You know,
and they calm the hell down. It's like
the clients I fight with the most are like the clients I'm closest with. That's the funny part. And usually, by the way, what kind of a lawyer was your father?
I mean, he did a lot of PI work, taxation. I mean, he was not focused on any area. At one point he did have a PI office that was strictly PI out of Hialeah. His main office was downtown Miami on Brickell.
Nice.
And he did a lot of family work and taxation work. But he had a separate PI office with an insurance adjuster out in Hialeah, and basically it was to go after the Hispanic market, as my father was he's Cuban.
I bet your dad knew with that client that like that client could take it, you know. And
yeah,
I have these clients that I'm real close with. In fact, like I got a case going to trial. I got an old school guy from Chicago. He's an old school Chicago Italian guy from the South Side. Like he's tough as nails. He thinks he knows everything. He argues with me about everything. We will be exchanging 4-letter words with each other at all times. And then he like loves me more for it. And I love him, even though he drives me nuts. I love him more for it because at least I know he's honest with me. You know, like even if he's arguing with me and I have to remind him, bro, I'm the lawyer and you hired me for a reason. You don't know everything. You might know everything about construction, but you don't know everything about personal injury law. That's why you hired me. I at least appreciate that he's not afraid to tell me what's on his mind. And I think your dad in that situation probably knew he could throw it back at the client like that. And it ends up being that those clients that you fight with the most, you're the closest with.
Yeah. And I remember I went in and I'm like, what the hell do I do here? I mean, these guys gonna get into a fight, you know?
Right.
And I walked in, the guy walks out, and I was like,
That's
oh my,
funny.
I'll
And then it was all good.
Yeah, no, it was fine. It was fine. It was just like it's like, what the hell is going on?
It's like
That
two
was
guys in the street, you know?
it was something that I'll never forget because I mean, typically a day in the office isn't all that exciting. You're just working, and then you have something explode like that. I
You
mean, I
came on a
remember.
good day.
No, I worked there. So I mean,
Oh, you worked there.
I worked for my father at the time,
Gotcha.
and I was in college, and I was like, oh my god.
That's funny.
But no, that was a trip. I mean, you guys are doing a lot of trucking work. I know that. I know that's something that you've been going and going to conferences for and seminars. What has that been like? I mean, how have you been doing in the trucking industry? I know that's something that you've been hitting a focus on.
Yeah, it's a great niche. We've really gotten some amazing results for our clients. It's a niche that takes a lot of learning. You've got to dedicate yourself to it. It's very fact intensive. It's very research intensive. So you have to have laid the foundation for yourself to kind of take on these trucking cases and execute them at a high level. But it pays real dividends when you know how, because you end up finding liability that existed that otherwise might not have been. Well, I can patently tell you that just won't be there to an untrained eye. A regular personal injury lawyer that doesn't know about trucking cases is not well equipped to handle a high level trucking case. It's different. And I heard somebody once say, yeah, you know, if you're handling a trucking case, like a regular personal injury case, a regular negligence case, you're committing malpractice. And that's like it's a very profound thing to say, but it's very true. It's very true. And I've seen some horror stories like with trucking cases that I inherit, where I see how the prior lawyer was handling it. I'm like, oh my Lord, you know, so it's been interesting for me. It's something that I was able to carve out a niche with, and it doesn't hurt that I get to make a lot of money on those cases too. And I get to make my clients a lot of money on those cases. They're fun. And they usually involve catastrophic injury and sadly
Of
death.
course.
And you know, we took a case to trial last year for a friend of mine that was killed by a tractor trailer, and it was a very fact intensive case. Liability was heavily disputed. Not an easy case. We settled the case. The case settled after we picked the jury. You know, some of those cases take a piece of your soul with you too, because these people are either maimed or they're killed.
As I'm looking at your website and I see you had one where it was a $4.5 million settlement in September. Is that
We
the
did.
case?
I'm not allowed to say which one was which, but that
Okay.
was the case that we settled during trial. Yep.
And then I see another one here. I mean, because you guys got a lot. I mean, a $7 million settlement for a truck striking a
Yep.
pedestrian. A
Yep.
pedestrian. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
He was
then,
hit by I can share enough to say that, you know, he was on the side of the road and the truck clipped his leg. He was running, his own tractor was on fire. And
so it was a truck driver hitting a truck driver?
yeah, coincidentally. So
Wow.
my client was on I-10. His
Jesus.
tractor, he was hauling vehicles like auto transpo,
Yeah.
and the trailer ignited in fire, and then as this other truck is in the far right lane on I-10, my client is trying to extinguish the fire, and the fire explodes. My client ends up in the road to run away from the fire. A piece of the truck clips his leg, takes his leg off. And, you know, as you can imagine, that was a heavily disputed liability case, because the trucking company for the truck that hit him was saying he ran into the road and there was nothing that the trucker could have done. We got a lot of facts out in that case through discovery, and it took a long time to do it. The case went up on appeal on discovery issues. We ended up finding out that the driver of the truck was fatigued. He was nodding out. The trucking company knew about it and kept him on the road. And we were able to establish, you know, with him in deposition that if he had been paying attention, he should have been in the far left lane because he would have seen this hazard, this burning fire ahead, and he should have taken action to avoid turning a hazard into an emergency and failed to do so by remaining in that far right lane closest to that truck, which ended up being the reason that he was able to clip my client's leg and take it off.
I mean, that's stuff that those seminars and conferences, I presume, train you on, because it's so, I mean, I know there's rules on driving for truck drivers. They can only drive a certain amount of time,
Yes.
which is why I think a lot of them do tandem, from what I've heard. And so that one drives, the other one sleeps, another one goes, and stuff like that. I mean,
I would
and
never have been able to do what I did in that case
mhm.
without the training that I received from some of these most elite trucking lawyers in the country. Joe Camerlingo, Joe Freed, guys like that, like learning from them and watching them and going to their seminars made me able to do with that case what I did. So that was a real example of, like, I know it's corny to say hard work paying off, but that was like a true, concrete, solidified in the books example of there's no way I get that result without all the hard work that I put in and the training I put in under those people and in those seminars.
I mean, these types of cases are cases that make an entire year for some
Yeah.
I mean, 5.9 million. I mean, I'm looking at a 5.9 million one in April of 23,
Yep.
and 3.3 million in October 22. I mean, so
Yeah.
obviously this is an area. How do you go about getting those cases? Do you market them? I mean, I know you guys have some billboards and stuff. I see your smiling faces around Pompano Beach, where I also happen to live. But how do you get a lot of them are referral based, or how do you get those types of cases?
Honestly, most of them have been referral based. I'm
Mhm.
always looking to land them. We do market to get them, but I can't really say our organic marketing has landed too many of those. We got a few, but those real big ones, they usually come from other lawyers,
Yeah.
that aren't personal injury lawyers, or they are personal injury lawyers, but they know that they're not going to be able to get the client the result that they need, so they'll refer it to me. So it's usually my friends of mine that are in a different industry that are attorneys,
Yeah.
or plaintiff lawyers that are smart enough to know, look, this client will get a better result with Ryan. And frankly, the referring lawyer will make more money
Yeah.
referring it to me. So
Of course. Do you have some tips for anyone that's trying to get into this trucking industry? That obviously you've gone through the training for, but if there's a lawyer out there that's looking at trying to get into trucking, I mean, obviously you don't want them to compete with you, but it is what
no,
it is. I mean, there's competition all
that's
over the place.
that's the thing about, like, the plaintiff bar, and I know firstly,
There's so many cases. There's
well,
not
and
for
we're
everybody.
very, like, fraternal, like
Yeah.
like your part, and thank you for all you and Synergy do for FJA. Like,
Mm.
we're very fraternal. The plaintiff lawyers, we have to stand together because we're going against massive insurance companies. So I have a very collaborative outlook, and I love to help other lawyers. I'm not competitive like that. I think that plaintiff lawyers that do act like that are really not seeing the long game, because the other side, way outnumbers us and way out resources us. So we have to band together. But to answer your question, the best thing that somebody can do is, join, like, the Academy of Truck Accident Attorneys. That's a great organization. That's where I really made my bones and really got my foundation with the trucking stuff. The cool part is it's always an evolving, it's an evolving industry, and you have to continue to learn it. I certainly haven't mastered it. There's guys that know a lot more than me. I brought Joe Camerlingo on a case because he's more equipped. He's better than me. He's been doing the trucking stuff longer than me. A really good friend of mine's, Stefano Portigliati, guy's a rock star, and he's like my age, and for somebody my age, he's the best trucking lawyer, given his age.
Mhm.
So sometimes I lean on him, and so I would join organizations like that, rub shoulders with people like that, rub elbows with people like that. And then you've got to read. Like, I've got books on my desk all the time. Like, I'm reading trial guides and stuff like that and researching. My partners think I'm a nerd, I think, but I read that stuff because it makes me a better lawyer. And I care a lot about being better because I'm competitive with myself, and I'm competitive against the defense bar. Like, I want to be looked at as an elite lawyer, and I can't do that by just Mickey Mousing around. So I put my nose in the books and I teach myself.
What did you learn working in the other side that you've applied? like to use against the other side now?
I know the way that I have a familiarity with how they evaluate claims. I also know that um, the defense lawyers, they want to build a file a lot, so they're going to bill the heck out of the file as much as they can, and then they're going to probably try to resolve it unless you're going against a real trial dog. So I keep a good rapport with the defense firms, but they're going to try to pull every trick in the book. They're going to do everything they can to defend, delay, and deny. And you cannot capitalize on your cases unless you are all over them. And I am all. There's not a defense lawyer that I go against that would tell you that I'm lazy or that I'm not aggressive, because I am very proactive, very aggressive. I drive them nuts. I make them know that I'm taking the case to trial unless you pay my client. And that's how I'm able to get these big results. So you just cannot sit on your hands. You cannot be lazy. You've got to be on the fight. And anytime that these defense firms are trying to pull these little tricks where they delay or they're not answering discovery the right way, you've got to go after them. And by doing that, you will be amazed at what you find out about what the defense is hiding. And then that's when the dollars show up.
A couple of years ago now, it's been a couple of years now since that mass tort, bill came into play. I mean,
Yep.
and when you look at the defense attorneys, and you guys, pretty much every PI firm had to file a whole bunch of complaints
Yeah.
right at the deadline, and then listening to them complain. When you saw them complain, and they had a memo or whatever that was for extra time. Well, what are you thinking? Because like you guys are the ones that wanted this, and then you have more work to do.
Yeah. Well, they really rushed out that bill, and they didn't really think it through. Doesn't
Yeah.
really surprise me. The Florida legislature has done some pretty silly things over the years.
Yeah.
That's one of them. I think it was a political stunt. Also, we know Ron DeSantis, got in bed with the insurance companies. It is what it is. Love him or hate him. That's what happened. I think he was preparing for a presidential run. So they rushed that bill out because the insurance companies were going to help fund Ron DeSantis. And I loved when Donald Trump called him out and called him Ron DeSanctimonious about that. It was amazing and great. And I won't get too deep into politics, but that was one thing about that Trump did that I loved, that he called him out. So yeah, they kind of started eating their own crap because they rushed that bill out, and now there's a lot of unresolved issues with that bill in terms of evidentiary hurdles, like whether the plaintiff has to produce proof of medical bills that substantiate them, or if that's something the defense. It's a mess right now, and we're waiting for appellate court decisions to come down to give us guidance, because the trial courts are just as confused as us, and there's inconsistent rulings taking place at trial.
Do you think? Well, this is obviously an opinion question, and you don't have to answer it if you don't want to.
Sure.
Do you think that most insurance defense attorneys believe the stuff that they spit?
Some do. Some do. I think the older ones, the seasoned ones that have been around a long time, they just get it. They just get it. And they're not really drinking the Kool-Aid. But there are a few lawyers, and in fact, there's one I'm going against right now, and I'm probably going to be trying to case against him in the next couple of months. I feel like he really has drank like massive amounts of the defense Kool-Aid. It's like it blows me away. So yeah, some do, but I think that lawyer is actually a good lawyer, so I'm not disparaging him, but I think he has drank the Kool-Aid. But a lot of the guys with the gray hair that have been doing it as long as I've been alive, or a little less than that, they more just get it. They know that they're on one side of the fence, and their side of the fence has their own bullshit. And look, the plaintiff side has some bullshit too. There is some bullshit that takes place. So I don't really like the bullshit on the plaintiff side. I personally, I think that there was good cause to try to get the medical bills knocked down. I think they started to get excessive on the LOP side, and they started to look a little ridiculous. And sometimes that can hurt the credibility of the case in front of the jury. So I think something needed to be done there, probably objectively, but it went way too far, unfortunately, with what DeSantis did. And now it's just ridiculous.
I asked that question simply because, we're all human, and we all at some point will probably get into a car accident. Hopefully, it's not a serious car accident. We may slip and fall at a Publix or a Costco or a Walmart and badly hurt ourselves in one of these large corporations, these large businesses that are worth billions of dollars, and only to have them fight you for tooth and nail over every penny
Yeah.
when you're potentially the victim of your own stuff. And,
Right.
and that's where that's why I asked, because I have it's hard for me to swallow, because I can look at my insurance. My car insurance right now is more than double what it was 3 years ago.
Right. Nothing
Like,
changed. It got
outrageous.
worse.
Nothing changed. I have not been in an accident in
Right.
more than 3 years, but my insurance rate is more than double. And I'm older, so it should be cheaper. I'm married, so it should be cheaper. My sons are 11 and 13. You know how it goes for a 16, 17-year-old boy driving a car. I
Absolutely.
am petrified of what that insurance bill will look like when my sons get a driver's license. I'm almost going to tell them you can't get one at this point, because
Right.
to pay what I'm paying for car insurance is outrageous. And it's been 3 years and it was half the price. So it's like, I got to think that these guys, or these women, men and women who are on the defense side, have to say, yeah, this is complete nonsense, but
Yeah. I don't
it's
think,
my
I don't,
job. It's my
I,
job.
yeah, that's right. I mean, but the other part of it is, you know, there are plaintiff lawyers that push nonsense claims too, and
Yes, of
that
course.
exists also. You know, I'm fortunate to be in a place in my career that I get to be a little more selective with the cases that I push, and I really just push the ones that I truly believe in. Um, but when you're a plaintiff lawyer pushing frivolous claims, it also that works
That's
against
bad.
our
Of
cause.
course.
Yeah, so there's two sides to the story. I've probably drank a little plaintiff Kool-Aid too, because I'm a diehard plaintiff lawyer, and that's all I'll
Yeah.
ever be. I'll never go to
Yeah.
the defense side ever, for multiple reasons, but really because of where my heart lies. But I think I at least see it clearly enough to know that the defense has a job to do also. I see their bullshit, and I see the good that they do. I also see the good that the plaintiff lawyers do, and I see some of the bullshit that I see on our side of the fence.
Yeah. 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 My homeowner's insurance. I'm sure your homeowner's insurance is
Crazy. Forget
astronomical.
about it. Forget about it.
It's 75% more than it was 5 years ago.
Yeah,
It's insane.
we're getting hammered.
You
Hammered.
know, I mean, can I at least have a hurricane come? I don't want a hurricane, but I'm almost like, can I at least have
So
a
I'm
hurricane come?
essentially buying one. So
At least, can you? I don't want to have it happen, but I almost want, like, can you blow the roof off my house?
well, what DeSantis did with and I never handled first party property
Oh,
claims, but
and yeah,
what what
that nonsense,
DeSantis did to that industry
horrible.
is absolutely despicable. It has been so bad for the layperson and the consumer, and so good for the insurance company. I mean, the insurance companies don't need steroids, and he injected massive amounts of steroids into the bargaining power of the insurance companies with that bill. It's awful. It's awful, and unfortunately, it's probably going to take a disaster in Florida for people to realize how bad that bill was, when these people have lost their homes or their roofs are destroyed, and then they're having to figure out how to make it work, because what DeSantis did is provided a major obstacle to getting relief. I loved when John Morgan called them out. He did a segment. I love that
That
John
was
Morgan will
funny.
just he'll just curse, he'll just say the
Yeah.
F word, even though he's like this mogul billionaire. I just love that about him. But he called them out bad, and the way he laid it out was very true. It was just an atrocity to the Floridians.
For those of you who don't know, he said you won't know you're effed till you're effed, and then you're effed, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. He's the best, man. You gotta love that guy. The guy's I
Did you
love.
see? Are you I mean, since you brought him up, I mean, do you stay clear of AI
No, we're
helping you on
not with
because I don't.
motion practice, but certainly with like going through deposition transcripts and stuff. It
Yeah,
is amazing, amazing. But
yeah,
like
because
you can't rely on it for research. Are you going to ask me about like the people that got
that's
caught plagiarizing?
no, it was the one that where they used and obviously this is not to disparage him. It was in the newspaper. I mean, and he commented on it where, someone used AI and AI brought up a whole bunch of cases that don't exist. And they were
Right.
used in
Oh yeah, I
emotion.
saw that. I
They
saw
didn't
that.
exist. And it's like, I mean, that plagiarizing would be a lot worse in my opinion than just because
Both are bad
both
and both are
are,
embarrassing. You're citing false
yeah.
law that doesn't exist. I mean,
But I
yeah,
think plagiarizing is more an ethical issue, but
that's
they could both
stealing.
be. Because I mean, I know that these tech companies are pushing AI up your ass at this point. Chat GPT, all this different stuff, and I like the Chat GPT thing because I'm actually able to
Amazing.
summarize a whole lot of things, which I think is pretty darn good.
It's
But
amazing.
I'm a sports geek, and you know, I Google. Sometimes I'm looking up things quickly for because as you know, I do a sports podcast as well beyond being the vice president of strategic partnership for Synergy. So I got my hands in a lot of different jars right now, but I'll look something up fast and then I'll read it and Google will give an AI thing. I'm like, that's totally wrong.
Right.
And I know the general answer. I'm just trying to confirm it. And I'm like, yo, that's way off. I don't know where they're getting that information from because I'm a pretty good sports encyclopedia for the most part. So
You
that's
are.
why
You're amazing with that. You're like the almanac.
yeah, so
You,
that
uh,
AI stuff kind of makes me nervous when I see certain things
you
and
just got to remember that it's at
yeah,
its infancy, like
yeah,
it's able to do amazing, remarkable things. A lot of the technology the advancements they already have with the AI, they haven't
mhm,
even released because they've been very careful. They're releasing it, carefully and meticulously at different times when they feel that the world is caught up, which is
yeah.
pretty interesting. I can only imagine what the military is using.
Oh my
Um,
God.
yeah,
Jeez.
but you got to remember, like you first of all, if you're doing emotion with AI, you better proofread that stuff, But that's the problem, if you start relying on technology too much, too fast, without doing your own due diligence, you're setting yourself up for failure. So,
Mhm.
you know,
You are in your spare time, in your part time, you are also a husband and a father. I'm
I
thinking
am.
obviously, you have young children. Um, what is what is it like for you as a dad to, and a husband to be able to provide for your family? I mean, I can only imagine the 14-year-old version of Ryan who
Yeah.
was beating people up at a McDonald's or something like
Wendy's. It was
that.
usually a Wendy's.
Those are Wendy's.
I got my head cracked open at a Burger King on a payphone. So I don't know if
Jesus.
I don't know if I ever had a McDonald's fight. But having kids and is amazing. My two daughters, like, they've changed my life. Obviously, it's pretty cliche, but it's true. And my wife is a lawyer, and what's good, I love her to death. She's the love of my life. She's a much smarter lawyer than me, but what really works with us is she understands how hard I have to work to be elite or to carve myself out as elite. And she knows that the track that I'm on, I know it gets difficult. She gives me some trouble about the refereeing college basketball. That's a different story because of how hard I have to work as a lawyer. But I'm fortunate to have a wife like her because I work like a dog. I don't stop. Lyle and Alex will tell you, I'm a bit of a workaholic. It's not always the healthiest thing, but my wife seems to understand it, because I just have that competitive edge. So, but going home, that's my release when I get to be home with my kids and with my wife, like that. That besides being on the basketball court, that's my escape.
No, I mean the basketball, you can't take that away because that's passion.
You need
You
to
know,
talk to
you
your wife. Yeah, I
no,
agree.
I feel you. Like that's the passion. Like that's something that's an escape from life. That's
Correct.
fun. I mean, you may have fun doing being a lawyer on a day-to-day basis. I haven't heard too many lawyers say they're having fun a lot of times when they're doing their work, but I mean, you celebrate the victories and so forth, but that basketball officiating is like I'm in motion. I'm having a good time.
When
Yeah.
I'm officiating a good basketball game, a competitive, high intense basketball game, there is no greater escape for me.
Yeah.
It is the one and only place and only time where I have zero problems. I have zero fears. beyond what's within that game itself, I'm totally locked in because outside of that context, I'm an anxious, wild nutcase. I'm the classic Jewish guy. I've got every problem running through my head at all times. Being on that floor in that moment is the ultimate therapy for me, and that's why I love it.
And I feel you. I feel you. And that's
Some
why when
guys
I
get
watch,
that playing, like I was a kid when I was playing. I don't play
yeah,
anymore. I haven't played in
yeah,
years, so I don't know that I had so many problems back when I was a kid, but as a man, I'm this anxious, type A fiery nut.
hmm
And for sure, officiating basketball is my escape, and it's my ultimate escape.
and it's one of those things where we watching sports as these leagues made it more politicized. It kind of took away a lot of joy from people because I'm
Yeah,
a sports nut, and it almost makes me want to turn it off because I watch sports to escape
yeah, I
life.
agree.
I'm not watching sports to give a damn about what anyone thinks about anything political. I don't the I won't- There's political and then there's whatever's going on in the world, but sports, movies, television, like comedy. I'm watching a comedy show because I don't want to hear about what's going on CNN or Fox. I don't
Yeah.
want to hear about it. And yet football and basketball especially have made everything about it and has turned a lot of people off.
Hollywood
Um,
has too, and
Hollywood
unfortunately,
too.
it's like we want these things to not be infected by that. Like, look, the
Yeah,
stakeholders, these different players and actors, they're welcome to have their political opinion. But when you feel like the entire industry itself is pushing something on you and force feeding something on you, that doesn't feel right. I don't want to watch basketball and have something rammed down my throat other than basketball.
yeah,
Period.
yeah.
I agree. It's like it's taken the purity out of it, and I
Mhm.
think I think people are very fed up with that. Frankly, I think that has had a lot to do with what's happened in recent elections. I think people are tired of having rhetoric jammed down their throat, and
Yeah.
I hope that it starts to come to a turn, but we'll see.
It seems like it has a bit in comparison to a couple of years ago where it was like everything's on the basketball court, these names on the back of the jerseys. And it's like, I'm here to watch a basketball game, man.
Right,
And I mean, I'm not trying to be insensitive, but I don't want to hear every third word something about what's going on in the world. I want you to tell me about
right.
this game. I want to watch this game. I want to be invested in this game. I had season tickets to the Miami Heat. I ain't been to a game this year. You
It's
know, I,
interesting.
I haven't
Yeah,
been to one game this year. I didn't go to a game last year because my wife was pregnant. But I don't even
the
want to
NBA is
go.
having trouble, man. I
The
mean, the
NBA's
NBA
ratings are in the toilet comparatively to what they
bad.
were, 10 plus years ago. Even
I
it's
think there's a
crazy.
mixture of reasons, and I think that's definitely one of the major ones.
What do you think of the game? What do you think of what's happened to this game right now? I mean, where it's basically drive and kick, 53s a game. I mean, that's not basketball to me.
I personally don't like it, but
Mhm.
that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
The NBA is, I don't like that 3-point contest type of game. I grew up in the '90s. I like post play.
Yeah.
I like mid-range game. I like the variety of it. And in college basketball, we have more of a variety. It's a much more pure game in the sense of how it was traditionally played. The NBA now, every single shot is either at the rim. It's either a play right at the rim or it's a play from way behind the arc. And like the numbers that I'm seeing, I never watch the NBA, but I do see like the clips and I hear the commentary about it. The stats I'm seeing about how many 3-point shots are taken in a game, it's astounding. It's ridiculous. And some of these teams aren't even elite 3-point shooting teams, and they're doing it. It's like, but it's become the style of play. I don't know, and I just hope that changes.
Everyone thinks they're a shooter. And what I've had to tell people, the way I view it, and you're a pro, anyone can make a jump shot if you're left wide open. If you're always
Right?
wide open, you should be able to make a jump shot. But calling that person a shooter
It's different.
is not the same thing.
Yeah,
Those shooters are running around the court, coming off of screens, boom, boom, bop.
creating their
Whereas,
own shot.
yeah, this guy's standing in the corner waiting for you to drive and kick. You
Well, it
know,
just seems like in the NBA they don't play as hard anymore. So these
no, they
guys are
don't.
wide open for
They don't.
threes. You know, they've got this
They
whole
don't.
load management thing that's going on.
It's horrible.
The tenacity and the fight in the game is like missing. You know,
Yeah.
and I've heard some interesting takes on why that is, and there's never really just one reason for these things. It's always a recipe of reasons. But I heard somebody, I forgot who it was, but he was talking about hockey, and he was talking about like in hockey what makes hockey so exciting and why hockey is growing in America is that these guys play their asses off and they
Yeah.
play hurt and not
Yeah.
just not hurt like in the sense of I got a little boo boo where these
No.
NBA guys sit out. Like these guys are critically injured and they're taking the ice. They got broken bones. They're getting their teeth knocked out. They're taking the ice and they're like that all season long. That's a much rougher game. So what the person was saying, and I agree. I think fans gravitate towards that. We see that. We see that fight. We see that hunger. We see that passion. It manifests itself in real time when somebody's watching. And I think that's an element of basketball that was there. It's not completely gone, but it's almost lifeless at this point.
I mean, no hockey. I know Matthew Tkachuk. They did that Four Nations game for the All-Star thing for them, and he got hurt, and he's now out for the rest of the season from that
Right.
Four Nations thing with a groin issue. And I mean, they said that was bigger than the Game 7 of the Stanley Cup for them.
Nuts.
Like they took that seriously. It was that. I mean, if you saw that, if you happen to see it, the look on the face of those hockey players from the U.S. after they lost, it was like a parent died, like they or a relative, a kid died. I mean, they were devastated, and you don't have that in basketball naturally, obviously. But
You're exactly right.
One of the things that PK Subban said on ESPN, where he shredded the NBA, was you can't just go out and go through the motions in hockey. You'll get put on your ass.
That's exactly right.
You can't. It's like you can't play mixed martial arts.
The game doesn't allow
play
for
boxing. That. You'll get your head knocked off. Whereas basketball, they'll move out the way and they don't care. But it was also Aaron Ekblad, who plays for the Panthers a couple years ago. They're in the playoffs. He played with a broken foot. It's hockey.
Yeah.
Like the whole, like for rounds, he played with a broken foot. I mean, it hurts me to walk up the stairs. This man's playing hockey with a broken foot.
Those guys are warriors. They are warriors. And that's what's, there are guys in the NBA that still have that mentality, but they're like few and far between. That's sad. Should be everybody. Yeah. And some of the top level guys are not like that.
And Tkachuk in that series versus Vegas when they lost in the Stanley Cup, because then the Panthers won last year, but the year before losing the Stanley Cup, he played with a broken sternum.
Yeah. That's just like ridiculous. Like you can't teach that. You've either got that in you or you don't. You've got that dog in you or you don't. That's not just a dog. That's like a pit bull that's been trained to kill. Yeah.
I just watched a podcast with Udonis Haslem. He was on some podcast, and he said the first year when the Heat had the big three, he said he played in the finals, like he played all Novocained up. Like his foot was shot up. His foot, he had broken his foot, and he missed a bunch of time. Came back in time for the Bulls, he said, and like UD's an old school OG type dude.
Oh yeah,
I mean, like he's a gangster. I mean, he's not gonna tough. And he said my foot was so shot up, couldn't feel anything.
Right.
But it was, I mean, I'm sure after the game it was agonizing. And he talked about that's like I was a step late on the play because but he was, and that was the Dallas Mavericks series that they lost. But he's like, don't ever take that defensive assignment from me again, Spo.
Right.
Because he took this. He said Spo switched him off of Dirk and put Bosch on Dirk. And if Bosch had been playing back, Bosch probably could have blocked the shot. Whereas I'm not tall enough to have blocked the shot, and my foot's jacked, and I can't feel. It's like,
yeah,
it was, there's old school guys. I love those.
Udonis Haslem's one of those guys that you think of when you think of the dog. That he's a fabric of the old NBA.
Yeah, for sure. So I got one last thing for you. Are there any? I see this a lot with attorneys posting this on social media. Why is it so hard for clients to understand, injured people to understand when you are injured, why you cannot post garbage on social media? Maybe you can
Yeah.
help give them that, that tip as to why they should not do that, because it seems obvious, but
I've had that manifest in trial. I know lawyers that have had that manifest in trial, where the social media stuff is what tanks the whole case, and it's what wins the case for the defense. You've got to be very careful what you're posting as a plaintiff, but you also, you got to. I tell my clients, don't make your life revolve around the case. Let the case revolve around your life. Testify honestly. Don't say you can't do things that you can do or that you still do. Try to keep it as 100 as you can. But certainly, if you're going to do something and you're going to stretch your limitations, don't put it on social media. Please don't put it on social media. If you're doing something suspect, it's going to call into question your character, and it's going to open a door for discovery for the defense to pry into your life in ways that they otherwise wouldn't have been allowed to do. Please don't post that on social media. That is, the worst enemy of a plaintiff will be the plaintiff. They have the ability to kill their case quicker than anybody.
I asked you that question earlier about, have you ever had it something happen where a plaintiff just tanked your case? Because I had an attorney tell me recently that he went over everything with this guy, and he told him, "I'm gonna ask you two questions, this and this is what your answer is, this and this." And he added something to the second one in trial. And because he added something, he opened up every other question
Was
now.
that trial like a week or two ago?
It was in the last month,
I know
month or
somebody that
two.
a friend of mine, a colleague of mine
Oh
that
yeah,
tried a case. Might be talking about the same person,
yeah,
but
it might be, but
I won't say the name, but I
yeah,
know
yeah,
I know he had a client open the door
to a
to
whole bunch of
something
stuff.
really bad that otherwise would not have been admissible, and it really messed
It,
things up
it
for the
destroyed.
case.
It destroyed the
We're
case.
probably talking about the same
Honestly,
person.
it was just,
It happens. It
and that's
happens.
why I asked, because I'm like, I can't imagine like you go over something with someone, and because you guys got costs. You guys, people don't understand. You guys are fronting the money for
Correct.
these cases, and if you lose in trial, you're out of that money. That money's
And I'll tell
gone.
you what, the money aside, because we front the money, the amount of time that
Time
we
spent.
put in to get a case off the ground, in litigation, through litigation, to trial, it is ridiculous. It far outweighs even the gross amount of money that we spend to get a case to trial. For that to happen is just the worst.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let everyone know where they can find you, man.
You can find me on a basketball court refereeing. You can find me hanging by my pool in Parkland. You can find me at the office most of the time. I'm in my office in East Pompano. LJWlegal.com is our website. People have my cell. People have my office line. You can start with the office line,
Office line.
and then you'll get my cell if you become a client. All my clients have my cell. And where else can you find me? I don't know. My life just isn't popping like that. I'm not at Live. I'm not popping bottles. Those days are long behind me, but maybe you and me, Rudy, can do that
It,
sometime soon. You let me know.
let's do it. It'll all be in the description of the video. So the social media, website, phone number for the firm, and how you can find Ryan. But my man Ryan Wechsler, I have a legal legend with me here today. I appreciate you so very, very much. I appreciate the relationship we have, and the fact that you work with Synergy as well, and as
Likewise.
I'm the VP of Strategic Partnership, and I work with these guys all the time. I mean, their office is literally down the street from my house, which is probably the worst thing for them, because I just pop up at any given
No,
time.
we love you, and Synergy does great work, and the work that you guys have done for my clients. And very recently, a very difficult lien case I gave you, where we actually waived our attorney fee, and the medical bills were well in the millions. For a catastrophic case with bad liability, you guys saved the day. So I'm just very thankful for Synergy, and we love working with you.
But thank you again. I got Ryan Wechsler, legal legend, partner Longine and Wechsler. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. And we will see everyone real soon.
Thank you.